What she told me? She said, I knew my sister was jealous of me. Completely missed it.
Right over her head.
See, there's a difference between religion and actually having there's a difference between religion and spirituality. You know, you can be, well, there's spiritual in a bad way, and then there's religious in a bad way. Amen. There's people who like to present themselves as something good, something pure, something holy, right? And I know that I'm only human. It's not of works lest any man should boast, because if it wasn't for Christ, man, we'd be in trouble.
Big time.
Man, I don't know why I got into all that, but I'll just keep on going. It says, I have manifested your name unto men, which you gave me out of the world. Yours they were, and you gave them to me. And they kept your word. Now this, it's not only, let me just read it to you again. It's yours they were, and you gave them to me, and they have kept your word. You're telling me the disciples had kept all the commandments and what was spoken? You know, I don't think Peter was keeping any of the commandments when he literally tried to cut someone's head off. Right? They were with Jesus. They kept with him. They kept in his ways. Right? They tried to follow him. They tried to be a part of him. They knew to some degree what he was. They didn't understand everything that he said. And it's true that the disciples didn't understand every parable in that moment, because there are a lot of times where they asked him, what does this mean? You know, when he gave the illustration about throwing the seed by the wayside, you know, how some seed falls on good ground, how some seed falls amongst the thorns, you know, shallow ground, you know, by the wayside where it be consumed by the pigs and what have you. And he gave them, you know, an interpretation, an illustration of what that means. You know, for us, we know that means, or that represents sharing the gospel. That no matter where we go, we share it.
Yes.
Whether in word or in testimony, or in action. Because we know action speaks louder than words, that we are living epistles, that we might very well be the only Bible people read. Amen. I remember it was today, actually. Every day we have I have a Bible study at work. Well, I don't. I attend a Bible study, I should say. And it's always something different. It's always something new. We're always learning something from a different perspective. And the way we have it set up, everybody will come, we'll read through the Bible. We all have basic. We're all in agreement across the board as far as, you know, the Trinity, the divinity of Christ, the sacrifice, and what it means. So what we like to do is we read the scriptures, and we talk, and we present questions, and we give our answers. You know, and if nobody knows, then, well, we continue to look it up, and then we come back at a later date. The topic that was brought up today was, you know, homosexuality. You know, and how do you deal with this, or how do you treat people like this, and what have you? And what do you say? Do you say anything? Well, no matter, well, the ending conclusion was, no matter what, you love them.
Yes.
Anyway, and I remember just, you know, because we kept on talking, obviously, we were going back and forth, and we were talking about personal stories of loved ones and what have you, and this one was talking about that, and I remember, you know, we were just talking about sharing. I remember getting up, and I was getting really emotional because it hurt. Because I said, I just wish I could grab people and shake them and tell them the truth, and that they would get it. I wish I could tell the world. I wish I could show you what I've seen. I wish you could feel what I feel. And, you know, there's that part of me that wants to lash out and in love and just tell them, this is the way to go.
Right.
There's a part of me that wants to tie a rope around my family's neck and drag them into the ark because I know there's safety in the ark. But I can't do that. This is, Christ is so significant. Because if it wasn't for him, there would be no ark. He is the ark. In him, we find our safety. In him, we can weather any storm. They tell us, if you flipped on the news and they said there will be tremendous flooding, that all the buildings in New York City would be covered. that'd be something.
Yes.
Even today, that'd be amazing. That'd be quite the. That'd be
Devastating.
devastating. But to have peace, even in a storm like that, to know that this great storm is on its way, that this great storm is approaching, but I have safety in the ark. I have protection. And that's, realistically, there is a storm coming. Just like the days of Noah, there is going to be a flood, so to speak. It's going to be, when I say flood, I don't mean water. I just mean it's going to happen quick.
Yeah.
The twinkling of an eye. When the Lord comes back. How many times, could you imagine how many times Noah was telling them that there was going to be a storm?
Yeah.
That there is going to be a flood. And they said, well, it's been it's been over hundreds of years. There hasn't been a flood yet. Well, it's been thousands of years since Christ was last on earth. The storm hasn't come yet, but it's on its way. And it happened quick. See, when the flood came, it didn't just come from the air, it came up from the ground. It overtook the people on all sides. They weren't ready for it. Without Christ, how could we escape? See, we know that there are only two options, heaven or hell. And it's up to us to make our choice in where we want to go. See, God, He's a perfect gentleman, I believe. Certain things He does allow to take place for particular reasons. Yes, He allowed wars to go on. Yes, it's because a lot of the people were disobedient. They weren't able to get to the promised land in time, and other people had moved in. But going back to God being perfect, whatever your decision is, you've already made it. What we see, I just got a word, I believe. How temporary life is. You know how long life is? All life is just a choice as to whether or not you'll follow God.
Right, true.
Your life is just one big decision. And whether or not we choose to follow Christ is or whether or not we go to heaven or not. See, I don't know why I'm getting on this, but I am. A lot of times, I would stop and I'd wonder as a Christian, how is it that, these people from these foreign, countries and what have you, in these places even today that are still untouched, how will these people get into heaven?
Right.
And for a while my thinking was, well, they're ignorant and they don't know. And God will only judge you by what you know. So because of that, they would get into heaven, which was wrong thinking. Yes, I do believe that I believe everybody will get the opportunity to accept Christ. Because Jesus plainly states, there is no other way. You can't accidentally find your way into heaven. That He is the way, the truth, and the life. And He goes so far as to say that no one comes to the Father unless it's through the Son.
Yes.
Amen.
Yes.
Amen. Moving on. Well, there's a lot more to that. When we know about Christ, dying when He died, I think it's in Peter, I can't remember, where it talks about how He was ministering to the saints of old.
Yes.
How some people believe that means, well, in the 3 days in which He was dead, He was ministering to the people of old, giving them a chance to accept Him as their Christ and their Savior. Now then, I'll pull it up for you. I'll show you after service. Amen. Some people speculate that might still be happening. I don't know. The Bible doesn't specifically outright say that. But for those of us who are privileged enough and have the opportunity to hear the gospel, there's no excuse for us. Me and Tim, we would go out and we'd pass out tracts to the people on every Saturday for a while. A couple of you came with us. And Tim told me that he imagined, because I'd see, Tim would be up in front of me and he'd give somebody a tract and I'd give one to another. And I'd look back and I'd see some of them crumble up the tract and throw it on the ground. And I said, wow. Again, going back to, I wish I could tell them. I wish they knew.
Get their attention.